Alright, there we go. I got the notification that I'm live now, so hello, welcome to Octopath Traveler, a JRPG released just last year by Square, and the main little thing of the game is that it has 8 characters and with 8 different stories. So each story has 4 chapters for each character, and today I'm going to be going through Cyrus's story. So I'm playing this on the Switch version, so I already kind of loaded up a save, and that way I'm going to save like 3 seconds on the first load of the game. And speaking of the first load of the game, time is going to start once I hit yes to begin the adventure, which I'll do in 3, 2, 1, go.
A world of knowledge awaits.
So I guess if you haven't played this game and want to, spoilers for Cyrus' story, because I probably will be saying some things, and also he's a story that has a lot of recurring characters. But this is Cyrus. Cyrus is the scholar. What that means is he is very magic-based in his attacks, and he's a nerd. For the most part, the story at the beginning of the game revolves around him being a nerd. There is the special archives in the library, which only like 3 people have access to. And some books from that go missing. So this gets us into path actions, which we're going to do immediately. Path actions, each character can do a specific action. And it can do something different. So Cyrus is scrutinized, where he can talk to an NPC, basically. And what it'll do is the NPC will tell him something. In the story, like right now, we're trying to figure out who stole the books from the secret part of the library, so we can get information from the story NPCs. Or like that random guard over there. I talked to him, or I scrutinized him rather, and he gave me the location of a hidden item. So Cyrus's path action is actually very useful, just outside of his own story, which is really good. And being a scholar is a very good class because you have multiple different types of magic. That means that makes Cyrus a useful character, including his own story. Cyrus is used in 7 of the 8 single story runs of this game, used in every story except Ulbricht's story. So extremely useful, and we'll get into more why he's useful a little bit later in the run when we get a specific skill. But for now, I'm going to go down here because I want to not only talk to, scrutinize this little girl to get a soul stone, but I also want to buy a better staff to use for the first boss. Something you might have seen me pick up is what's called the soul stone. It's just your basic item that does magic damage to every party, except it's a stone and not like a spell. Or not every member of your party, but all of the enemies in the battle at once. And speaking of battles, we're gonna get into those. So each enemy in this game has shield points. And what a shield point does is it basically protects the enemy from being broken. Every time you hit an enemy with something that the enemy's weak to, they lose a shield point, and when they run out of shield points, they break, which means that they lose the rest of their turn, all of their next turn, and they take double damage while broken. And when the enemy is broken, it's also good to boost. Every battle I start off with 1 boost point, and I get another boost point for every turn that I do not use one. Boost points are useful either for increasing the damage of a skill, or if I were to do a normal attack while boosting, it would make me use the normal attack multiple times. So like if I boosted 3 times and then did a staff attack, I would just hit 3 times with the staff. You can use up to 3 boost points in 1 turn, and carry up to 5 at once. Alright, that's fine. Usually what you do in this part of the game is you actually want to grind. And you want to grind to 15 JP. So JP is like skill points. You use them to teach yourself skills. These skeletons only give 4, So if you get a skeleton while looking for the other enemies that I've been fighting in this area, which is the Sentinels, you actually won't get enough JP. However, I can just take a backup fight. I don't want to do a bunch of luck-based stuff because it's a marathon run and I have an estimate to make. So this is the first boss. This is Russell. He isn't that bad. However, the bubbles in the back of the fight here are very bad. These things I want to get rid of as soon as possible, and they have, like, ranges, so I can use my attack, and then I just have to hope that I do a good enough amount of damage for them to die by turn 3, which is next turn. So after Russell attacks here, I'm going to use my first Soul Stone here and see if they die. They should both die. Yeah, they should both die. I got good damage rolls, which is fortunate. Alright, let's see. I'm actually going to do a strategy that is usually not seen in the fight like this. I do need to heal here, otherwise I will die. So I'm doing a little bit of an abridged version of this fight right here, but...
What next? A gift for you. What is the logical course? Interesting. Oh, ice! Pierce them through!
Point is that we do all the damage we need to do when he's broken, and he should die to this attack right here. There we go.
Not bad.
So that's the first boss. That's the fight against Russell. Was pretty rocky, honestly. This first chapter isn't fantastic. But it's okay. We can keep moving on here. I'm at 29 JP right now, and to teach the first skill of a job, I need to be at 30. And there's a skill I want to teach. So if I get an encounter where I'm going, on the path to where I'm going next, I'll take it for the skill. I can technically do without the skill, but do I want to? No. So yeah, we just have to go through a few more cutscenes here. We got rid of Russell for stealing the books. And then, a jealous student of ours started a rumor that we were, you know, getting kind of close to the princess. And we got fired, basically. And so we're going to use that as an excuse to go around the world and try and find one specific book from the special part of the library that still is not recovered. So now, basically, this game is open world. We can do whatever we want in any order, as long as, like, you know, we don't die from being too under-leveled.
We settle this like gentlemen. What is the logic?
So yeah, I'm taking this encounter just because I really do need to get an encounter out of the way. And the skill that I wanted to teach myself is how I'm supposed to break these things, so I had to do that pretty stupidly, but we're good now. I have 41 JP, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach myself Lightning Blast. So the Scholar also, on top of Fire and Ice, has Thunder skills, and there are types of skills where for each of the elements that the Scholar can use, they can hit twice, which is really good for shield points later in the run. So I want to teach the double lightning skill, and now we're into Whistlewood. Whistlewood's kind of a nightmare. The thing with the dungeon is that we're grinding a certain encounter to get a certain amount of JP. However, that encounter does. Not only does that encounter not only show up, I think maybe out of 7 or 8 encounters in this dungeon, 3 of them are like acceptable for the best RNG you can get. We also need this money that's up here. So usually for marathons, what I like to do is, if I don't get the encounter I want within 3 tries, I'll just take whatever encounter I get and grind outside of Whistlewood. However, I keep getting caught by surprise. This area is pretty over-leveled compared to what my level is right now. So... it's pretty easy to die here and get caught by surprise. Cyrus also isn't, like, the fastest character in the game. In terms of, like, speed stat. I don't know if that matters for surprise, but I'm going to pretend it does. So, let's see if I don't get caught by surprise 3 times in a row, because these bugs in the back, the sud bugs, are the encounter I'm looking for. So, one of the soul stones I scrutinized back in Atlas Dam was medium-sized.
Not bad.
And if I use that, I can kill the encounter, and I now have 116 JP. I can teach myself another skill, doesn't matter which one, and I can get my first support skill, which as a scholar, my first support skill is evasive maneuvers, which this game runs on a step count, so every time you load into a screen, the number of steps before you get an encounter on that screen is generated. Evasive maneuvers just makes that step count roll higher. Like, there's a multiplier onto how much higher it makes it roll. And that allows us... I mentioned that this game is basically open world. As soon as we're high enough level. Using evasive maneuvers can help us in a lot of situations avoid getting into battles. And therefore, we don't have to worry about being under-leveled because we just won't get into a battle at all. And that saves a lot of time. Because that means that we can get to higher level areas early.
Now, what next?
Cyrus still can't run. From what we know, the level that you are is what majorly determines your success on running away from an enemy. And I am much higher level than that level 1 enemy, but I still couldn't run away because this game is just kind of mean. This game is joked about in the community for having no idea how math and statistics work. There's a lot of 30% things that probably shouldn't work instantly. You fail 90% 4 times in a row sometimes because that's just a thing that happens in Octopath Traveler. But here, I'm going to be moving through these screens. That town, Rippletide, I'm tagging it for later, so... I don't have a use for it right now, but I will later. So I enter the town so that I can fast travel to it when I do need to go there.
I've done my research on you.
And that's kind of what happens in a decent chunk of Octopath runs, is you usually rush to get evasive maneuvers as fast as possible, and then
What next?
you try and deal with,
What is the logical course of action?
and then you try and get, like, late game gear, basically. Even though you aren't at a point of the game where you should have it yet, and then you're gonna try and tear through bosses. So this, like, setup period takes a while, and Cyrus kind of has an issue within his run where he, even really late in the run, he still has a bunch of setup periods, so... Well, I think the action in this run is really cool. There tends to be a lot of breaks in between the action in this run, which, I mean, is nice and chill. Some categories are just a bit too active, like Tressa, you just basically hop from chapter to chapter, or Ulbrich has like 20 billion required story fights. Or Haunted just has no good fights. But we tagged another town there, Cobblestone, to get another party member later in the game. And this screen is very difficult, that I'm on right now. It's one that, even if you do very good on movement, you'll sometimes just get an encounter here anyways. And you're gonna die to the encounter on this screen if you get it, unless you get a very lucky flea. You don't need a very lucky flea, though, if you just make it first try to this town like a boss. So yeah, that's Stone Guard. That's where Cyrus Chapter 3 takes place. So we're gonna be going there later. But for now, we're gonna go to a different area to get a lot of money. Money's very useful in this run. One of the major characters, or basically the best character, the only character that's used in all 8 single story runs is Tressa, and she's a merchant, so she's very money-based. So I'm gonna grab that. That's a large soul stone. And then I'm gonna go into here, which is a shrine. This is actually the first shrine I'm going into in the run. So there are side jobs in this game. On top of getting, having a character assigned to a job because of who they are, you can also assign them a different job, and they can have 2 jobs at once. Which is their base job and whatever side job you give them. On top of that, there are also these 4, secret jobs that are very powerful, but to get them, you have to fight a boss that's, even stronger than usual Chapter 4 bosses. That shrine has one of those bosses. However, instead of killing that boss, we just go and take the $50,000 in the back of the shrine. And then we go back to Ripple-Tide, and we pick up our second character, who's Tressa. So all the characters in this game are characters that you could have picked at the start, so it's pretty cool. You get to go through all the stories and make a party anyways. And you can't have all 8 characters in your party at once, unfortunately, so for the sake of the run, I'm not going to recruit all 8 characters, and instead I'm just going to, pick the 4 that are fast, and, well, the 3 technically, because one of my characters is locked on Cyrus. I'm going to pick the 3 other characters that will help me complete the character, Cyrus's boss as quickly as possible, and then I'm just gonna go for it.
Can't we settle this
so, if you haven't noticed, the coastlands, where Tressa is, one of the 8 regions, has unbearably long screens, where even evasive maneuvers, can't save you from getting an encounter. And I'm having the world's worst luck running away from encounters. So, there we go. There we go. Got it. Now we're in the Cave of Maya, which is where Tressa's first boss is. When you get a new character, you don't have to go through their opening story, but you do have to go through their Chapter 1 dungeon and boss fight. So otherwise, you can't leave the town and keep the character in your party. So, okay, controller. So I'm going to fight Tressa's Chapter 1 boss right now. And with the power of that large soul stone I got, this boss is going to be, really easy. As you see here, all I need to do is just... Who's going first? Tressa? Okay.
My turn now. Try this on.
Hard boss, by the way.
Got more than you bargained for.
That's Mick and Matt. So now I'm going to just finish up Tressa's first chapter and then get my 3rd character of the run. There's one thing I need to do in between finishing the chapter and starting my 3rd character's first chapter, and that is I need to go back into Ripple-Tide, actually. Once you finish this Tressa's Chapter 1, there's a new NPC that spawns in Ripple-Tide. right down here, and she has some pretty good soul stones. I can scrutinize her for a large Thunder Soul Stone, and I can buy a medium Thunder Soul Stone from her. And that's Tressa's path action. She's a merchant. She can buy items off of NPCs. Each NPC has a set list of items that you can buy. And so we like buying Soul Stones, mainly from the NPCs in the game. So this third character is Ulbrich, and his base job is the warrior. He's pretty interesting because some routes, like he's not the most common character to see in runs. He's used in including his own route, I think he's used in only 3
Victory shall be mine.
of the 8 single stories, but he's kind of fundamentally insanely important, because there's a few warrior skills in particular that are going to be extremely helpful, and in this run we're going to do a combo of a warrior skill and a merchant skill in order to
Victory shall be mine. Have a taste of this.
do a very funny strategy for the final boss of the story. So we're now going to head into his Chapter 1 dungeon. And this is Gaston, who is Ulbrich's first boss. This is a good time to point out the health scale of Chapter 1. So as you pick up more characters, Chapter 1 bosses get stronger. And then once I pick up my 4th character, the strongest a Chapter 1 boss will be, since again, I can't have more than 4 characters in my party at once. So like, that boss had more health than if I were to do Ulbrich's first chapter before Tressa's. And that routing can be kind of important because it can change, you know, what soul stones you need to use. Because as you saw there, Gaston was weak to thunder and didn't die despite taking more damage than Mick and Mac, who weren't weak to light, but still died. And that's also just something about weaknesses, actually. You'll take more damage. If an enemy is broken, or not broken, if it's not broken, but it's weak to something, and you use that something it's weak to, that actually also does a damage multiplier, but instead of being a full 2.0, it's like a 1.3 times damage multiplier, so you gotta be real careful. And this is Sunshade. We're not gonna get the character that's in Sunshade, even though she's one of my favorites personally, Primrose the Dancer. There is a separate route for this category that uses Primrose, called the BG route. Bewildering Grace is a dancer skill that is kind of like Metronome. It has a lot of random effects that can happen. It can heal your party, it can heal your enemy, it can kill your party, it can kill your enemy, it can give you stat buffs, it can give you stat decreases. Namely, it can give you a multiplier for the experience or JP that you get from a battle. And there's a route that saves about 1.5 minutes where you use Bewildering Grace, and on Cyrus's 2nd chapter boss, you roll, you try and roll JP times 5 multiplier, and that way you can teach a specific support skill to all of your characters instead of doing a detour that I'm going to do later in the run, where you go get healing items. Well, not healing items, but like items that up your max HP. A little bit different. So right now I'm about to get my 4th character, but before I do that, I'm actually going to go to the town where Cyrus's 2nd chapter is and do a decent chunk of it. I'm gonna basically unlock the dungeon and then leave and come back later when I'm more ready for the dungeon. I need to make sure not to start Tressa's chapter 2 though, because Tressa also has a chapter 2 in Quarry Crest. And so for Cyrus's chapter 2 though, we go to Odette, who is a good friend of Cyrus's, and she knows a lot about the books and stuff like Cyrus is investigating. So he thinks to go over here, and he learns about a guy who is like kidnapping people, and people are well, we think it's a guy kidnapping people because that's what you think is happening when you hear about people randomly disappearing in the sewers if they go near the inn. Like, you'd think somebody is kidnapping people in the sewers, and we piece together that somebody is kidnapping people in the sewers. So after we talk to a bunch of people about someone kidnapping them and throwing them in the sewers, we're gonna talk about, we're gonna piece together about the fact that there is a person kidnapping people and throwing them into the sewers, and then we're able to go in the sewers and confront the guy that is kidnapping people and throwing them into the sewers. However, before we do that, we're gonna go get our 4th character and gear up a little bit more for Chapter 2. Because, you know, we don't want to get kidnapped and thrown in the sewer. So now, after that, we're gonna go to, instead of going to the Ring 2, which, like, there's 3 town levels in the game. There's Ring 1, which is where Chapter 1s take place. Ring 2 is where Chapters 2 and 3 take place. And then Ring 3 is where Chapter 4s take place. So we're heading over to the Ring 1 town of the Clifflands, where Ring 2 was Quarry Crest, Ring 1 is Boulder Fall. And the 4th character we want is in this town.
My turn now.
Can I please get 1, please? I have not successfully fleed from an enemy. All run. Like, this is the worst thing ever. This is... hello? Like...
Here I go.
Thank you. Alright. My controller's acting up right now. But here we have Therian. He's the thief as base, and he is very useful. The thief is a pretty useful class in general. However, sometimes when you go by Quarry Crest, you don't pick up the thief, because you can instead pick up the thief's shrine, which is usually better than going for Therian as a party member. However, Therian has a very important skill, and this gets into every character has something to them besides just their job and their path action. Like, for example, Cyrus can analyze an opponent's weakness every time they enter a battle. Or Tressa, every now and then when you go across a loading zone, will just randomly find money, and you have more money. Therian, his special thing is that he can open up purple chests. And that is very important for Cyrus's run, so we need him. We, like, can't go without him. Here I'm gonna reload my autosave. So the step counter in this game, I mentioned step counter earlier in terms of getting into an encounter. The step counter resets every time that you go into a loading zone that has a different danger level or name. And that is every loading zone in the game except for mansions. Mansion dungeons tend to be in 2 screens with no discernible name or danger level difference between the 2. So that screen transition there actually didn't reset my step encounter like every other screen transition in the game would. And we're bordering at the point of where our level would preferably be higher right about now. So this is Peach Coat.
How about you? Have a taste of this.
And we're just gonna throw all the soul stones that we have at him.
Out of my way.
And he'll die. So now we have a full party of 4.
Don't start things you can't finish.
And we also have a dog barking in the background. I see my mom's car out there. She's home. But now we can leave the town. And start finishing up some of the prep for the Chapter 2 boss. We have a few more things we need to do before we take on the second boss of the game, or of the Cyrus story at least. And the first one is, I'm going to make a trip to Cyrus's Chapter 4 town. So, that's up all the way up here in the woodlands. I'm going to go through this entire area just to get to one town. But it's, again, where Cyrus's 4th chapter takes place. So it's going to be important to get there. And Boulder Fall is really the closest place to this part of the woods. So now's a good time to take it. And as well as taking that, we can take this shrine right here. So this is the first side job I'm actually going to be taking. The Shrine of the Huntress has the Hunter job. And the Hunter job is pretty important, actually, for the last boss of the run. It has one skill in particular that is going to be incredibly useful called the Leg Hold Trap, which what that does is it forces whatever enemy you use it on, and it works on bosses to move last for the amount of turns that Leg Hold Trap is active, and you can boost it to make it active longer. That's what a lot of like status moves do. If you boost it, it'll last longer. So like, if I use Armor Down on an enemy with Therian, and it'll act for like 2 turns, but if I boost it like once, I use a boost point, it'll down for 2 turns, or for 4 turns instead of 2. And that's useful all throughout the run. So here, Dusk Barrow. The screen is just slightly too long to make without getting an encounter. However, similarly to loading the autosave to reset my step counter, if I just make a save at a save point and reload it, it resets my step counter. So I'll be able to make it to... That's a huge cloud over that chest. And we'll be able to make it to the town and also get that money item. So now we're in Dusk Barrow, which is where the 4th chapter of Cyrus' story takes place. I'm gonna buy this item from this guy here because he actually sells... It's an item that's meant to be sold for money. However, you can actually buy it from him for less money than you can sell it for. So once you sell it, it'll actually be a net profit. And once we're done with the stuff that we want to loot in that area of the game, we're going to go back to Stoneguard for a little bit. There's 2 pit stops that I'm going to want to make that require me going to Stoneguard area and then moving from there. The first one is I'm going to go back to the Ring 3 area I went to very early in the run, which is Everhold Pass. Everhold Pass has 2 dungeons in it, technically, because one of it has a shrine on it, so... It has a shrine on it, and... on top of that, it has a basic side dungeon, because every area in the game has a side dungeon. Yeah, my controller is messing up bad, so I might get an encounter here, because I did that little loop around to try and make it work. I do need to send these Joy-Cons in, but... I think I was supposed to get that chest up. No, I wasn't. I don't remember. I'm doing this route entirely by memory, actually, so I don't remember. I'm getting that chest, actually. You know what? Once you leave an encounter, it resets your step counter. I like how I can't run from a level 1 enemy, but I suddenly go to a level 45 area, and I get a lucky flea. What is going on in this run? But this is Everhold Tunnels, And in this dungeon, there's a mini-boss. Usually mini-bosses guard very good items. So what you can do is get in an encounter and die. When you get into a mini-boss, like, arena area, you usually get this pop-up that says, like, there's an overwhelming sense of danger. Are you sure you'd like to continue? And if you say yes to continuing, you get into the mini-boss fight. However, if you say no, it pushes you back a little bit, and say the magic words with me, it resets your step counter. So in a side dungeon, we can use a mini-boss, if it has one, in order to reset the step counter, and that way we can get some really good loot that's in here without fear of getting into an encounter with a level 55 enemy. So yeah, I hit perhaps not there in the game, pushes me back, and also resets my step counter. So I can get the knowledge staff from a purple chest, so I need to have Therian in my party to open that. And also I can get this chest with 30k, 35k even, and then I can leave the dungeon and go back to Stoneguard. And I'm gonna leave Stoneguard again to go get a different side area. Except this one's not gonna be a dungeon. It's actually going to be another job shrine that I need for the run.
Open for business.
Of course I was caught by surprise in this encounter. This is a screen that often an encounter happens, so I'm not too surprised, but I am annoyed. Okay, over it. Yeah, this is fine. Please hit this at least once. Okay. If every enemy in an encounter is broken, it gives you free reign to run away from it, absolutely, with 100% chance. Get back on your feet. Ulbrich, I need you. So, yeah, we now have made it to Moonstruck Coast. I'm gonna do another save reload here to reset my step counter, because otherwise I will not make it to the place on the screen I want to make it to. Alright, so this is the merchant side job. It is pretty good. So now that we have that, I'm going to go into my job menu, and I'm going to teach some things. Alright, there we go. So that's just a set of skills that's going to be useful coming up. And with all that done, we're finally ready to fight the second boss of Cyrus' story, which is the guy that is kidnapping people and throwing them into the sewers. So we go into the sewers, where there is a guy kidnapping people and throwing them into here. And we have to find the guy that is kidnapping people and throwing them into the sewers, and also the people who are being kidnapped and thrown into the sewers. And he's right down here. I'm going to drop a save because there's a chance I could get an encounter quite literally in between the save point and the door. Okay, but we didn't. And it's also just good to have just in case I miss menu. Oh, by the way, here's all the people that were thrown into the sewers and kidnapped by a guy. And here's the guy that was kidnapping people and thrown into the sewers. Throwing them into the sewers. This is Gideon. And for all that buildup of how this guy has been kidnapping people and throwing them into the sewers, he's not difficult. So there's a merchant skill we have on our 2 merchants called Hired Help, where you can pay money to have people come into battle and do damage for you. There are 5 tiers to it, and the top tier of it is $30,000 to do a lot of damage. Now, $30,000 to do a lot of damage is something that you're usually not supposed to just throw around like an idiot. However, by throwing them around like an idiot, we can just deal with the first boss of this, or the second boss of Cyrus' story in 2 turns. Like, even in Chapter 4s, you're supposed to not feel amazing about just randomly throwing $30,000 at an enemy. However, because this is a speedrun of only 1 character's story, I don't care about resource management, and if I want to throw $60,000 at one Chapter 2 boss, I'm going to throw $60,000 at a Chapter 2 boss, and you can't stop me. So now we're going to go into the end of the second chapter, which is just in a cutscene down here, and then I'm going to work to Sunshade. Because Sunshade is close to a different town that I need to go to. So now I'm going to take a detour. I mentioned earlier in the run about the BG route, in which you save 1.5 minutes by skipping something. However, I don't know that route, or I do know that route because I have notes for it, but I'm not going to do it in a marathon. So I'm going to go to the town of Saintsbridge, which is the Ring 2 town in the Riverlands, and there's something useful there for me that I'll get to when I make it. Okay, so actually I should clarify a little bit more about the story. After defeating Gideon, the guy kidnapping people and throwing them into the sewers, we found out that he actually contained a translated, an abridged, kind of translated version, basically, of the book that we're looking for. And it told about a translator in Stoneguard. So we're going to Stoneguard. As our chapter 3. Before that, though, I gotta do a 30%, or like a 36% scrutinize on a guy. That's a purchase. And I got it first try, cool. He adds items, more items to the armory, which is like the weapon and armor shop. And I feel like I need to get something from you. Nope. In particular, he adds some bracelets that I'm gonna buy in a little bit. Before that, I'm gonna sell all of my stuff here that I got throughout the run to sell. And then I'm gonna buy 8 empowering bracelets. And with 8 empowering bracelets, I can give them to 2 to each of my characters. Each character can wear 2 accessories. And what an empowering bracelet does is it ups your max HP by 500. So by giving 2 to each character's max HP goes up by 1,000. And that's pretty useful. So now we're into chapter 3. We talked to this guy and we learned that about the guy who translated the book a little bit. We go to this house. He's not very happy. So he does not answer us. So we're gonna go ask about why he's unhappy. And we're gonna learn that he is upset because he feels regret. Basically, what he did was, as we're gonna figure out shortly when we do our little interrogation sequence of chapter 3, is he took on a job from actually the headmaster of the school that we got fired from in the first chapter. Took on a job from him to translate the book that we're looking for and that Gideon was using to kidnap people and throw them into the sewers. Because he needed money after the death of his daughter. And we learned that Yvonne actually used to live in Stoneguard from that girl, who's Lucia, who is the headmaster's assistant at the school. And she's gonna be like, she's gonna pretend to be on our side for a little bit so that she can, like, do some stuff. She's gonna be like, oh yeah, I can bring you there. And then when she brings us there, what she does is she, as we go to step into the mansion, she basically, like, knocks us out and we wake up in a pit. Yeah. Very important here, what I do is, before moving on with the story, I grab this chest right here. The bone. It's a very important item, because if you don't get it now, you can't get back to it, and then you can miss the achievement for getting all chests on the Steam version. The bone is actually just an item that you can sell for $1. But it's very important. So now we're in Yvonne's cellar, Yvonne being the headmaster, and this is a major run killer of the run, is Yvonne. He's very luck-based in his boss fight. We need a good turn order on the first turn of the boss fight to not get, like, absolutely destroyed.
Victory shall be mine.
Thank you for hitting.
Here I go.
Do need to heal up here a little bit, because I do want to be at full HP for this fight. Yvonne coming up, Chapter 3 of Cyrus' story. This boss is a luck-based nightmare, and I also forgot to do some equipment stuff. So, oops. Let me just die quickly. You know what? I'm gonna go through with the fight, because there's a very small chance that I'll actually be completely fine. No, actually, there's not a chance I'll be completely fine. There's zero chance that I'll be fine here. So yeah, this boss is a nightmare. So let me do some things here. I'm gonna teach some support skills here. I'm gonna give Cyrus leg hold trap, which is important for later. And then I'm gonna teach some skills to Ulbrich here. I taught him endless items and covers by teaching him sidestep, insight, and 1,000 spears. And none of those are going to be useful in Yvonne, but they are going to be useful in the 4th chapter boss. And cover is actually a good support skill, though. Endless items is, we don't need it in this route, but I mean it's cool if you get like an endless items bonus. It basically gives you a 25% chance to get an item back when you use it as the character that has it equipped. But cover is, if a character is close to death, Ulbrich will take a hit for them, and that's usually pretty good, because it can make this fight somewhat easy. The thing with this fight is, if any of the guys in the front use Tornado on turn 1, you're done for, unless you get like a very specific turn order that I've done before, where you can save it because you're lucky as heck. But it's not fun to rely on that.
I cannot fail.
So, let's see. Once you get past turn 1, if everybody's like alive past turn 1, it becomes a guaranteed success fight.
Like this.
I am sorry.
Get into the fight, please.
I cannot fail.
luck based. This is why some people don't like Cyrus. If we have like a donation or you want to plug an incentive, just do it now.
Speaking of incentives, we do have the Super Mario Galaxy 2 Perfect Run incentive coming up. That's currently at $30 out of 40, so if you want to see that, there's only $10 more to go until that gets met. What else is there? We still have all of the other bid wars, the Sekiro Save or Kill War, Pokemon Diamond Pearl, Transformers the Game category bid war, and the Jazz Jack Rabbit 2 character bid war.
Can't end like this.
Also, I believe coming up we have a bonus game incentive for Luigi's Mansion Any Percent. That's currently sitting at about $102 out of 175.
Yeah, that's a
So,
cumulative,
see that.
so...
Yep. So yeah, I guess other than that, if there's anything else that I should plug, or if you want me to hand it over back to you for now.
Well, I'm still in this fight, so we'll see. Still getting bad luck.
I mean, I guess just a quick plug on the other incentives we have. We've got the Kirby Nightmare Dreamland 100% run instead of doing any percent. That's at $20 out of 60. Kirby Air Ride 5 hot dogs %. That's still at $1 out of 75. And the Wii Sports Resort Quack % and Play Sacks is still yet to be started. So if you want to see any of those get met, yeah.
I cannot fail.
And I guess that's pretty much it for now. So I'll hand it back to you, Laurie.
Well, I have a little bit of a better turn order here. Cyrus is moving before the second scholar. I still got a tornado, so like I'm still like dead unless I get like. All right, I can go for the craziest luck ever. And actually, no, that still won't be enough. That's what you usually want to have happen, except your turn order is better.
Sorry.
Alright. I think my game is starting to load slow because it's been open too long with the same exact loads. Let's see. Oh, please. This is why people don't grind Cyrus.
So much to learn.
This guy might be in like the top 3 of like some of the hardest, like the most annoying single story bosses next to like Red Eye and Omar and Simeon. There we go! We got it! Now I just actually need to do the turns right, and I got the fight. Everybody survived through turn 1, which is what you need to happen. So Tressa moved second Tressa moved after Ulbrich on turn 1, so she's gonna act as Merchant 2 throughout this fight. Well, Ulbrich's gonna act as Merchant 1.
A gift for
So now at this point, now that Yvonne is broken and we still have the Scholars broken, we're gonna just try and
have a taste of
break
this.
everybody.
Out of my way.
Take this.
There we go.
How about you?
rank there and what to do. This is a skill that the merchant starts with. It's called Collect. You can take money from bosses.
Out of my way. I see.
Think not.
And that's useful because it's an easy way to get a really good amount of money. So here, Yvonne adds shield points but gains a weakness, so I can use
I think not.
fire there to guarantee he gets hit, to break him, and then I'm going to do 2 rounds of hired help, veteran soldiers, and that's going to be Yvonne finally. The reason why you like to use magic there is because some weapons have different evasions compared to others, and the dagger has like some of the worst accuracy in the game. However,
With each battle,
magic attacks actually never miss. So, we made it out of Chapter 3. However, I think I'm missing an item. Which is not good. Let me just open up the dungeon and I'll go to my shared, Google Drive, and I'll look for the Cyrus notes and I'll see if I'm forgetting anything. Cyrus English. Yeah, I am forgetting something. How much money am I at? 31. I'm at a lot of extra money. So what I'm gonna do is I need to find a place where I can get an extra large soul stone. I think what I was supposed to do was I was supposed to purchase one over here. When I went to get the empowering bracelets, the person who you scrutinize to get those sells a soul stone, and I think I forgot that one. I'm at 31k right now, and so that means I'm very good on money for the final boss. And like that's not an amount of money you're usually that good on, so that like has to mean that I'm missing a soul stone, because that's like, yeah, now I'm at like low 25-ish k, and that's normal. That's more normal than 31. But yeah, I opened the dungeon already, so I'm just gonna go back in. And actually, do I? Wait a minute, I'm still missing another. I'm also supposed to buy the medium from that guy. Hello, welcome to. My memory is. I've what's it called? Alzheimer's? Yeah. Welcome to I have Alzheimer's. Hello, I'm gonna talk to you again. I got a discount. Sometimes when you get you buy something from an NPC, you could get a discount where it just kind of costs less money because Tress is that good at bargaining. And that leads me to actually mention Noble versus Rogue. So this whole game, we've been dealing with some percentages in some of my path actions. That's because there are 2 types of travelers in this game. There are Noble travelers and there are Rogue travelers. Noble travelers have to have a certain level to make their path action work. However, it works 100% of the time as long as they're that level. Rogue travelers have percentage-based things, and they can do theirs at any level. However, if they fail their path action enough time, they can lose a reputation, and you have to pay the tavern keeper in the town to get your reputation back. So pick up these 2 items. And here's a library. So we learned last chapter that, like, well, Yvonne is now gone, we still have to deal with Lucia, because Lucia was doing some stuff on her own. And we secretly learn that she has this giant archive of books in these ruins. So I'm going to teach a bunch of these skills to Therian, so that he can not only have skills to make the fight possible, but also get Fleetfoot, which is a support skill that ups his speed. And we would like him to move quickly in the next fight. So this is the last boss of Cyrus's story. This is Lucia, and similarly to Yvonne, we need to have a good first turn in order to win this fight. However, only one person moves on the first turn instead of 3, so it's slightly better. However, I'm still going to die right now. Ulbrich, now's not the time to be a hero.
Damn, I think not. Damn, I think not. Have I failed?
So this is a fight where a lot of the debuffs come into play here, actually.
I cannot fail.
Once we're able to get a winnable turn order. Oh goodness, I think I used all my luck this morning when I was practicing. Because I had a bunch of dumb lucky stuff happen this morning. But now I'm just getting the shortest end of the stick possible.
Have I failed? I cannot fail.
There we go. That works. So I'm gonna demonstrate Thousand Spears here quickly with Ulbrich because he's deciding to move. It's kind of one of those moves that's like, ooh, it can hit a bunch, but it has low accuracy. How much is it gonna hit? Yeah, it will be guaranteed to hit at least 3 times every time you use it. Same goes for the Hunter skill, Rain of Arrows, which the Hunter starts with Rain of Arrows. So Cyrus has that, and he's gonna use that a lot throughout this fight because right now Lucia's actually weak to every type of physical attack except for a staff. And by the way, I didn't explain this because I haven't used it yet, but the lowest tier of hired help, which is the mercenaries I just used, gives you a physical defense boost. So between Shackle Foe I taught, which lowers Lucia's physical attack, and the mercenaries, which ups my physical defense, I'm going to be able to live because I know Lucia's pattern. She does the same moves every time. And with that, we're getting into Ulbrich's strategy, which is a combination of Insight, which is a taunt-type move, which makes it so that Ulbrich will always be targeted by Lucia if Lucia is doing a an attack that isn't that doesn't hit the whole party at once. So a combination of that and a merchant skill called Sidestep, which gives me an 100% chance to dodge a physical attack. So now Ulbrich will be hit by every single attack that Lucia throws out, but has an 100% chance to dodge it. And I need to do some setups on BB and breaks to break Lucia on turn 7. So this is just going to be a good distraction in the meanwhile, to minimize the amount of damage I'm taking so that I don't die.
Let the arrows fly.
Here I go. Let me help.
So yeah, moving into turn 5 now.
Too slow. Too slow.
I'm going to reset up all of my buffs and debuffs here because we're on turn 5 and I need her to break on turn 7. So she's going to be attacking throughout turn 5 and 6. Do Rain of Arrows here. Okay.
How about you?
I'm going to set up some more side steps. At this point, I shouldn't have a character do anything because Lucia is at very low shield, and I don't want to break her a turn early. Therian's passive incidental attack might break one more shield here. Okay, it didn't. I'm gonna need Cyrus. I'm gonna switch your weapon now, and then I'm gonna make you defend. Over it to do pomegranate on himself, and then I'm going to have Tressa. I can have you hit once. Okay. And now we're gonna go in for the kill. Lucia is one of the weaker Chapter 4 bosses in health-wise. So, unlike most Chapter 4 bosses, where she usually takes 4 rounds of higher health veterans on max boost, she actually only takes 3 on top of the Soulstone combination that I'm going to be using with Therian and Cyrus in order to get the kill on the boss.
Take this.
So, use that there. Do another set of higher health veterans, and at this point she's going to be at like less than 2,000 HP. So this medium Soulstone that I have will be able to kill her. And there we go. That's Lucia. That's the final boss of Cyrus' story. It's not time yet. I do need to do some post-boss stuff. In Octopath single story runs, the first character that you pick on the title screen of Octopath is the character that you have to finish the 4th chapter of in order to get the game's credits. So timing for single stories usually just ends when the credits start. And Cyrus has some pretty lengthy post-boss stuff going on, because now that Lucia's dealt with, he can study all the books in this library and figure out what Lucia's kind of main goal was. And her main goal was to basically summon the power of the Dark God Galdera, so that she could have the power for herself. So we need to study these books, including the one that we've been looking for all game. And then I'm going to fast travel out of the dungeon and go back in so that I can make it to the mural that we saw earlier in the dungeon without an encounter. And I'm going to scrutinize that mural, and then I'm going to have one last investigation section where I have to click certain dialogue options. And time will be at the end of that section, so I'll let you know when that is, because that's in like 10 to 20 seconds-ish. Alright. And time! There we go. That is Cyrus' story. Octopath Traveler is a really fun game, so I'm very glad that I got to show it off. Shoutouts to the community for this game. The community for this game is a great bunch of people, and I love hanging out with them, and there are a lot of good resources for learning this game. Like, a bunch of people have made routes, and it's very well kept together and documented, and very easy to find and very easy to use, which makes this game pretty easy to learn despite all the RNG that goes into some of these stories. So if this is something that interests you, or JRPGs in general are something that interests you, make sure to check the game out and like watch other streams, and again, maybe try learning it for yourself. But with that being said, I think I'm all done here. I'll be back later in the marathon. I have 2 more games tonight in a row. I have Momodora and One Shot. But for now, I'm going to hand it off and let whoever's next do their run. So thank you.